Welcome, everybody, to Panic at the Podcast, also known as the Hidden Gems Musical Podcast, which I know isn't very catchy. I'm your host, and your only host. Aww. I know, it's sad. Max Kirby. Before we begin, if you could spread the word that this podcast is currently live, and you know any friends or family that would be interested, make sure to go to www.youtube.com/Kirbylife with 2 E's, where you will also be able to watch the past podcast as a rendered video. Otherwise, we may begin. So today, the podcast is going to be focused around Panic at the Disco and their album titled Death of a Bachelor. I'll be talking about my theory on the album, and I will also be talking about the album artwork and how it ties into previous albums and so on. So grab a cup of tea and get comfortable. Unless you're in the stand live right now, and if you go and get a cup of tea, you'll probably miss the entire podcast, so completely disregard what I just said. So let's get straight into the theories on the album. There are many theories on the album Death of a Bachelor. There are theories such as Panic at the Disco singing about their rise to fame. There's theories about how Brendon Urie is taking back the crown after the band broke apart.
I'm taking back the crown. I'm all dressed up and naked. I see what's mine and take it.
And trying to get the recognition that he deserves by himself. The final theory I've come across is how hard it can be to make an album by yourself.
There's no sunshine this impossible year.
Which in reality is a good theory and most likely the most realistic theory. But we're not here for realism today. We're here to talk about the theory that I've put together by analysing all of their music videos and seeing what I could do with it. So my theory is to do with Brendon Urie successfully murdering someone and going out to celebrate. But soon after he goes out to celebrate, he starts to feel guilty about the murder and starts going to church to confess his sins. But as he's doing that, he realises that he's going to go to hell either way. So eventually, he accepts that he's killed the man and admits that he's a psychopath. Brendon Urie then tries to get with the murdered man's wife, but this all leads to the wife finding out about the murder, ending with Brendon Urie being put in jail. The reason I've come to like this theory is because it gives the album some life and an element of surprise, love, jealousy, anger, and just a commotion of different sins, which makes the album seem much more exciting rather than listening to the song with no thoughts or meanings behind them, but only because there are some absolute banging tunes. Am I right, everyone? Before we go on to our next segment, I want to remind you all that you can vote online on who you want me to talk about in the next podcast, out of the selected artists, such as Bring Me the Horizon, Sleeping with Sirens, Tenacious D, and so forth. So if any of those particular artists interest you, or you know about any similar artists that could be on the website, go to www.thehiddengemspodcast.co.uk/vote. Thank you. We're going to move on and talk about the album art for Death of a Bachelor. At a first glance of the album cover, you can tell that a lot has happened, but the main focus of the image that draws your eye in is a car that's crashed into the pool. Many people have theorised that the car that's crashed into the pool resembles the car from the music video Miss Jackson in the previous album titled Too Young to Live, Too Rare to Die. This song resembles a prostitute that every man ends up falling for. The next thing in the album art that is noticeable is Brendon Urie himself, dead on the roof. After that, you sort of start to analyse all the smaller things in the album art, such as the cut wires and the blood dripping on the floor by the studio, just below Brendon Urie's dead body. The art can suggest multiple scenarios, such as a wild party or a crime scene, or perhaps they both even tie in together. The reason I mentioned the car in the Miss Jackson music video is because I feel like it very closely links in with the Don't Threaten Me With a Good Time music video in this current album, Death of a Bachelor. In the Death of a Bachelor music video, Brendon Urie takes home a woman after they both get drunk at a bar. But the plot twist is that the woman turns out to be a monster and ends up trying to kill him, but it all turns out to be in his mind. And eventually we find out that towards the end, he is the real monster. I think these tie in because it's the same house and the same car, and that both music videos are being merged together with different scenarios. So coming to the end of the podcast. Next Friday, we'll be talking about 21 Pilots, featuring Kat, Akira and Caitlin as our guests. Stay tuned next week for that, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.